In the heart of East Africa lies a Garden of Eden, born of fire, now a wildlife showcase. Spectacular scenery, plentiful food, and permanent water create an apparent paradise. But this natural wonderland hides dark secrets. Is Ngorongoro crater a wildlife heaven or hell? On the edge of the Rift Valley in Tanzania lies a place of unparalleled richness and beauty. Ngorongoro is the largest volcanic crater in the world. And it's home to a superabundance of wildlife. Walls around half a kilometer high enclose a floor over 20 kilometers wide. It's a magnificent natural amphitheater. But is this wildlife cradle also the ultimate natural prison? The surrounding Serengeti Plains play host to one of the most amazing natural events: the Great Wildebeest Migration. Close by, Lake Manyara's beautiful shores teem with exotic wildlife. And Lake Natron is home to 3/4 of the world's lesser flamingos. Even our own earliest ancestors were born here. But what has created these natural riches? And what happens when nature's generosity becomes a poisoned chalice? What is Ngorongoro? And how was it born? 20 million years ago, the eastern side of Africa began to crack open. Two huge faults moved apart, creating a vast void 45 kilometers wide and nearly 5,000 kilometers long. The Great Rift Valley was born. Molten rock forced its way up from below, emerging at the surface in violent eruptions that formed enormous volcanoes. Ngorongoro grew into a towering mountain that would have dwarfed the European Alps. And its death was just as dramatic. Three million years ago, a catastrophic eruption caused the mountain to collapse in on itself, creating the enormous crater we see today. Ngorongoro, the huge hole. Its floor covers 260 square kilometers, and it's over half a kilometer deep. This is the largest crater in the world. The Rift Valley is lined with extinct volcanoes. But there's one that is still very much alive. Oldonyo Lengai, the Mountain of God. Like Ngorongoro would have done in its day, Oldonyo Lengai still regularly shoots volcanic ash high into the atmosphere. These mineral-rich deposits nurture the surrounding landscape. Their nutrients create a fertile soil that supports lush vegetation and diverse wildlife. The riches here mean there are more lions per square kilometer than anywhere else in Africa. These 60 lions are split into 4 prides and have a huge choice of prey enclosed within the crater walls. But the predators are also corralled here. Such fierce competition means that everyone is on the lookout for a free meal. The jackal tries his luck. But a lion is just too large to take on. The jackal has to bide his time. In the end, patience pays off, and the freeloader finally gets his small share of the prize. But soon, the lion has a much bigger problem to deal with. Hyenas. Making a kill is hard enough without having it stolen by arch-rivals. These spotted hyenas scour Ngorongoro in huge numbers, constantly vying for prey and territory. They have the most powerful jaws of any carnivore and will not hesitate to seize any meat-eating opportunity. They share the same tastes as the lions, so violent arguments are inevitable. The war between these two species is so brutal that given any opportunity, a lion will kill a hyena. And a hyena will try to slaughter even a defenseless lion cub. This time, the lions are outnumbered and are forced to give up their precious meal to their nemesis. The continuous feud between these two warring species isn't just over food. Both lions and hyenas are trapped in the crater, so the battle for prime real estate is extra critical to their success as hunters. But territorial tussles aren't the biggest challenge facing these lions' struggle for survival. The crater's encircling walls also acts as a barrier to the lions living on the outside. With little or no new blood coming into the gene pool, this is creating a problem. The crater's lions have started to inbreed. In 1962, the effects of this isolation were dramatically compounded. This was the year Ngorongoro switched from heaven to hell. Unusually heavy rains brought swarms of biting flies with them. They overwhelmed the crater lions, covering them with festering sores. Eventually, the lions became so ill they could no longer hunt. The impact was devastating. By the time the rains and the flies disappeared, the 70-strong lion population had been reduced to just 10. Over time, the lion population recovered, but the inbreeding problem continues to weaken their immune systems. Unless new lions from outside the crater's enclosure come in to create a genetically stronger generation, the resident population could be doomed. And without lions to keep prey in check, disease could spread through the grazers' populations, reducing their numbers much more than the lions ever could. But just outside of Ngorongoro's massive walls, there is plenty of fresh lion blood. These mighty predators face a separate problem. A human barrier stops them from entering this flawed Eden. On the grassy plains encircling Ngorongoro is a tempting year-round meal opportunity. Cows look like an easy target for the local lions. But warriors with razor-sharp 2-meter spears are guarding these herds as they graze on the mineral-rich land. These Maasai warriors guard their livestock from lion attacks. And so prevent them from reaching the crater. Hunting lions used to be a Maasai rite of passage, but today, this age-old tradition has been outlawed. But if their herds are attacked, then killing the aggressor is allowed. Each warrior will risk his life to fulfill his protective duty. Bravery is highly prized in Maasai society. And the courage needed to challenge such a dangerous predator is celebrated. Faces are painted with red ochre. It is the color for war and power. And the traditional ritual of the jumping dance demonstrates the warrior's stamina, essential when taking on a lion with just a spear. So lions living outside Ngorongoro have learnt to steer clear of the Maasai. That's why they don't meet the potential mates enclosed within its walls. The rich ashlands immediately surrounding Ngorongoro make for ideal grazing for cattle and wildlife alike. But the crater's influence reaches much further afield. 30 kilometers southeast of Ngorongoro, on the shores of Lake Manyara, is another extremely fertile strip of land. Water percolates through the porous volcanic rock of the Rift Valley's walls and emerges from springs as freshly filtered groundwater that trickles into the alkaline lake. These springs support a flourishing forest. Many animals populate this idyllic garden. This giant wild fig tree alone provides pickings for dozens of animals. Blue monkeys forage high in the canopy. Their life is so easy that they never need risk coming down from the trees. This monkey gets all the fresh water he needs from the leaves and the juicy fruits and flowers just an arm's reach away. With so much food on offer, many species feed alongside each other in harmony. But alpha male baboons rarely need an excuse to throw their weight around. This huge male spends a lot of time and effort fighting his way to the top of his group. So he's keen to remind everyone that he's in charge. The troop's youngsters can't sit still either. Play fighting isn't just fun. It's also good training to develop the skills they'll need to grow into strong, dominant individuals themselves. This abundance of fruit satisfies even the largest of appetites. Female elephant herds and their calves come here to make the most of the natural riches in the relative safety of the forest. These sweet figs are a special treat. The elephants carve immense paths through the dense surrounding forest. And these highways even attract savanna animals right into the woods to feast. Impala prefer the open plains, where predators are easily spotted. But these ones risk venturing into the shady woodland for the rich pickings on offer. People are also keen to exploit this garden of plenty. The rich volcanic soils are ideal for cultivation, and this farmer has come from the far side of Tanzania to grow bananas. Fields burst with crops, And banana plantations produce over 1,000 tons of fruit each year. This volcanic region seems like the perfect place for people to flourish. A secret our earliest known ancestors already discovered over 2 million years ago. What clues did they leave behind that tell us about the way they lived in this volcanic land? Just a stone's throw from Ngorongoro is perhaps the most important place in the known history of mankind. Olduvai Gorge. What secrets have been uncovered in this dry and desolate place? Recent discoveries have revealed a whole host of primitive tools, skull and bone fragments dating back around 1.5 million years. Early human hunters, known as Homo habilis, ruled this vast region for over 500,000 years. But the local fossil record shows they suddenly disappeared. We still have no idea what actually happened to these early humans. One theory is that the lake eventually shrank, forcing them to migrate in search of water. And even today, this is how most wildlife living around Ngorongoro manage to survive. Yet the fertile lands created by Ngorongoro's volcanic past are still home to a thriving community of people. The Maasai came from Kenya around 200 years ago and claimed the ash-rich grazing ground surrounding the crater as theirs. The previous occupants were forced to flee. Now the Maasai are as much a part of this landscape as their feline rivals, the lions. This proud tribe of cattle herders largely live peacefully alongside the wildlife, relying on their herds for food rather than hunting wild animals. Meat, milk, and blood are staple foods, all supplied by their livestock. An arrow is shot at close range to puncture the cow's jugular vein. The blood is caught in a skin gourd. This blood harvest can be repeated every month or so without harming the cow. It may look gruesome, but the blood is both high in protein and strengthens the people's immune system. So it is highly prized, especially by children. And the Maasai's fearless warriors. Maasai villages are protected by a strong fence of thorny acacia brush. And all the livestock is brought inside every night to shelter them from predators. The men are responsible for lighting fires, using an age-old method of fire sticks, tinder, and dried dung. It's the job of the boys to look after the herds. But keeping cattle does pose problems. Cows need 10 times more salt than people. Fortunately, this volcanic region provides the perfect solution. A place so saline, it seems nothing could survive here. To the north of Ngorongoro lies an alien landscape. It is permanently marked by recent ash deposits from the eruptions of the still active Oldonyo Lengai. But here, the ash doesn't fertilize the land. It poisons it. A shallow salt lake has borne the brunt of the volcano's bitter influence. How can anything survive here, in one of the most hostile environments on Earth? Lake Natron is the ultimate soda lake. High evaporation rates mean its water rarely gets deeper than 2 meters. It's so saturated with mineral salts that it is caustic and tacky to touch. It's the most inhospitable body of water in Africa. And yet, amazingly, life has found a way to exist. Alkaline tilapia thrive in the hot springs that feed the saline lake. And even these Maasai have found a way to exploit the very minerals that makes this place so hostile. Salt has been a valuable commodity for millennia, and harvesting it provides an important income. Some of this harvest is given to their precious cattle to satisfy their huge salt requirements. The mountain's concoction of volcanic minerals spill into Lake Natron, giving it a glassy surface so reflective that confused birds sometimes crash into it. These lesser flamingos gather here in their millions. But how are they able to live in this harsh environment? The skin on their legs is thick and leathery to withstand the burning alkaline water. And the flamingos feed on blue-green spirulina algae, one of the very few organisms able to survive in the lake's extreme conditions. A network of filters inside their bills traps the microscopic algae. This odd-looking upside-down feeding position ensures the birds' heads always stay clear of the foul-smelling caustic water. It is surely no accident that flamingos have almost no sense of taste. Lake Natron may be hostile, but it is vital to the survival of the lesser flamingo. 3/4 of the world population breed here. Few predators are willing to risk wading through the sticky mudflats that surround the lake. Fewer still would brave the burning waters to try and snatch a meal. These extreme conditions make Lake Natron a very safe flamingo nursery. These chicks still lack their parents' impressive pink plumage. The color comes from the red pigment found in the algae they eat and takes time to build up. And when food stocks run low, Lake Natron's flamingos migrate. The flocks continuously move between several soda lakes in the Rift Valley, giving the algae in each lake time to replenish. But not all the lakes in the Rift Valley are as caustic as Lake Natron. The Maasai have learned to make good use of the less alkaline salty pools as a natural disinfecting dip, cleansing their goats and cattle of parasites and infection. Ngorongoro's own soda lake, Lake Magadi, is also one of these flamingo pit stops. But these birds are taking a risk. Although the waters of Lake Magadi are also alkaline, they're not caustic enough to keep predators at bay. These hungry hunters prowl the shallow lake edges. They're on the lookout for a straggler from the flock. Golden jackals are too small to take on large prey by themselves, but a small flamingo is easily overpowered and makes a decent meal. But other jackals arrive to muscle in. The flamingo makes a desperate bid for freedom, whilst the attacker is chasing off his rivals. But his injuries soon force him into the water. This time, there is no escape. The water in the crater isn't just limited to the soda lake. There are streams and springs that feed an extensive wetland system, providing year-round fresh water for the crater's inhabitants, even during the harsh dry season. These swamps are wildlife magnets. During the dry season, all Ngorongoro's animals come here to drink. This permanent supply has even allowed water-loving hippos to colonize the crater floor. Hippos can't survive without swamps and lakes. Their bodies are designed for living in the water, and they only leave it to graze, usually at night. These colossal creatures are virtually hairless, so to avoid sunburn and dehydration, they spend most of their time bathing. But during the dry season, even the water levels of the Mandusi swamp fall, and it becomes difficult for the hippos to submerge their immense frames. But, trapped in the crater, they have nowhere else to go. So to protect their sensitive skin, they coat their bodies in mud. It's messy, but highly effective, and allows them to leave the water for brief periods during the heat of the day. The dry season is also the time for courtship. It's a practical arrangement, ensuring most hippo births coincide with the rainy season's rich grasses. But not everyone gets their timing quite right. This calf has been born out of season, but it still appears in perfect health, despite the drier conditions. The youngster can already submerge and suckle underwater, a talent it's had from birth. But the laid-back atmosphere in this hippo pool is misleading. Hippos are one of the most dangerous animals in Africa, killing more people every year than any other. Fights are serious and involve slashing each other with their huge teeth. And they won't hesitate to attack any intruder seen as a threat. Despite the danger, virtually all of Ngorongoro's residents must rely on these hippo-dominated swamps for water, and approach with caution. But outside the crater lies a world of plenty. A vast land of fertile soils that support huge numbers of wildlife. To the northwest of the crater lies the Serengeti. It was formed 3 million years ago when the Ngorongoro crater imploded, covering these plains with thick ash. Further deposits from recent eruptions of Old Donyo Lengai have added to the almost treeless plains. When it gets wet, the ash sets like concrete and is too tough for deep roots to penetrate, so trees can't survive. But grasses flourish on the shallow layer of nutrient-rich topsoil and dominate the Serengeti's southeastern expanse. As a result, these plains can support over 2 million grazing animals. Once the southern Serengeti's short November rains have fallen, thousands of grazers flock to these grasslands and the Ngorongoro highlands. They're constantly on the move, forever migrating in search of food and water. So too are the expert hunters tracking their every move. This is the Serengeti migration. It is one of nature's most epic events. Seen nowhere else on Earth, this incredible wildlife drama plays out on a gigantic scale. Eventually, the grass runs out. The massive herds must continue to follow the seasonal rains in their annual trek from the southern edge of the plains to the north and back again. This is the longest and largest mass land migration on Earth. Many don't complete this treacherous 3,000-kilometer journey. Over 250,000 wildebeest alone die along the way. Some from injury, others from exhaustion. And exposed on these vast grasslands, many are killed by predators. Lions, hyenas, leopards, and cheetahs all claim their quota. The calving season produces thousands of inexperienced young travelers, making life even easier for the plains' hardened hunters. Lion prides have carved the Serengeti up into jealously guarded territories. When the migrating herds arrive in a pride's home grounds, a season of plenty begins for the resident hunters. The thundering of millions of hooves signals the herd's approach. The lion pride is eagerly anticipating the feast. This pair of lionesses are a finely tuned team of deadly stalkers, working closely together to isolate a target. But to go hunting, they have to leave their young cubs behind, hidden in the long grass. It's risky. Jackals, hyenas, leopards, martial eagles, and snakes all pose serious dangers to lion cubs. Most will die before the age of 2. But the lionesses have no choice. They must hunt to keep their family alive. They make a selection and begin to move in on their target. They're unaware that their cubs are in mortal peril. A group of hyenas has spotted them. They're easy pickings for their age-old rivals. But the cubs' mothers are completely focused on the hunt. All in a split second, The hyenas spot easier prey and change tact. A small wildebeest calf has fallen prey to the mob. It's a lucky escape for the cubs. Meanwhile, the lionesses up the pace of the chase. These zebras know that a momentary lapse in concentration can cost you your life. And that to survive, you must keep moving. Back in the Ngorongoro crater, escape isn't an option for most of the inhabitants. The wildlife is corralled into this natural enclosure. The crater walls act like a gigantic fortress, protectively surrounding its core and concentrating the hunters. It's a deadly situation for most of the grazers, except for those too big to fall victim to the predator's jaws. Tuskers roam the ash-fed plains covering the crater floor. The bulls are simply too large and too strong to be in any danger from lions or hyenas. But female elephants with vulnerable calves aren't prepared to face the risk of so many predators patrolling the crater floor. The rich, soft feeding grounds with plenty of waterholes, sheltered by steep rock walls, make life easy for these old bulls. That's why Ngorongoro is home to some of the biggest tuskers in Africa. Here, they're safe from predator attacks and human persecution. And although lions are stopped from entering or leaving Ngorongoro by the Maasai warriors, these bulls are free to leave. So when it's time to mate, they must risk leaving the sanctuary of the crater and seek out the female herds outside its steep walls. Fueled by volcanic drama, scattered ash fertilizes an exceptional array of landscapes. Home to wildlife and people, and some of the most hostile places on Earth. The Serengeti's rich plains give on the one hand, but its predators are just as quick to take away. The fertile soils of the Maasai homelands allow them to raise their herds of cattle and goats, but it puts them in deadly conflict with resident lions. The soda lakes scattered throughout the Ngorongoro area provide refuge to many, but not to all. The crater means protection, but also imprisonment. Ngorongoro is both a natural hell and a garden of Eden.